Right. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. It's now 1:32 p.m. and I'll declare the meeting, 2:32, p.m. and I'll declare the meeting open. Welcome to councillors and invited guests that are here with us this afternoon, for those that have joined us via the Zoom meeting, and we also have some invited guests on the Zoom as well, which the Chief Executive will introduce to you all shortly. And to the guests that have joined us today, welcome to everybody. The opening karakia, kia hora, te marino, kia papapapa, punamu te moana. Hei hurahai, mā tātou, ai te rei nei, araha atu, araha mai, tātou ie, tātou katoa, hui e, whaiki e. Apologies, we have one from Kaipakahiri, Tumahui, sorry. Not from you, Paul. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please, resolve that that apology be accepted? Thank you very much, Councillor Casson, Councillor Gordon. All in favour to that?
Aye.
Thank you. Declarations of interest again. Please ensure they are updated as needed and there have been no changes noted to date. So with that, we'll move on to the urgent items not on the agenda. There's an item that's been taken out of order to the agenda. It's an administrative resolution, warrant of appointment for Michael Newport, Animal Control Compliance Officer. The reason this is not on the agenda is the application to commence contracted duties as Animal Control Compliance Officer was received after the council agenda was publicly released. And two, the reason why the discussion of the item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting is to enable the staff member to carry out their duties as Animal Control Compliance Officer with various functions, powers, duties and discretion pursuant to the relevant legislation. So the resolution is that in accordance with section 46A7 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act and under section 9.12 of Council's adopted standing orders, those items be added as urgent item not on the agenda for council's consideration. Can I have a mover of seconder, please? Councillor Kirsten, thank you very much. Councillor Gillette, thank you very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. Moving on to minutes of meetings, the ordinary council meeting minutes of 24th July. The resolution is that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 24th July 2025 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Can I have a move for a seconder, please? And then we'll have any matters arising. Councillor Beard, Councillor Gillette. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Are there any matters arising from those minutes? Right. So I approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed ordinary council meeting minutes of 24 July 2025. We have no minutes to be received from standing committees. So from there, we'll move right on to the action list and hand over to our Chief Executive, please, to cover.
Thank you, Your Worship. For the meeting action list on the 28th of August 2025, the first item, the agreement has been that we will bring back from the September meeting to the council further work is required to look at next steps and outline of timeframe. That will be an item that will be brought forward to the September meeting for council. Second item was the Hautawhiti Museum Trust for the terms of reference. I haven't been able to complete that in the time frame for them to be prepared for this meeting. We can prepare them for the meeting for September unless councillors would like it to be put forward across with the elections put forward for the new council for consideration. But I can do either way. We'll bring them forward for the September meeting.
Councillors?
I said to come to the September meeting and to get forward on with the meeting.
The council to take on. Very good. Everybody agrees with that? Right. Thank you, Mabel. Thank you.
I think item 3, which is CBD strategy, self-explanatory. We've got the meeting for tomorrow scheduled. Same with item 4. The scheduling is the next meeting for 12th September. Item 5, that was to just keep that on the agenda, but the last quarterly update was in July. The item 6, which was around table to discuss issues at Lake Canary. Her Worship the Mayor and the Group Manager District Assets and Mr and Mrs Breeze met on the 12th of August 2025. In terms of item 7, Yep.
I thought that was going to be a wider meeting.
Involving wider community.
No, first off, we wanted to respond to the letter and their direct concerns so we could actually understand the gravity and the depth of what they wanted to look at. And then it's coming to council actually as a report to be looked at further. Because there's also planning, there's developments, there's a lot of things that we need to look at out there. So there will be a wider conversation at that point. We really just wanted to narrow down
So
what
there
we
will be
need.
an opportunity for the
Absolutely.
wider community.
Absolutely.
Item 7, which was identified as the Hokitika Western Fire Site, that actually, after discussion at the council, framed up as looking at not only those minutes which went to Councillor Burden, but also to look at a small working group to look at the tourism experience going through Hokitika. The first meeting of that small group has been pulled together. I'm unaware that there's any further items from Councillor Burden regarding that.
Just we can have a second meeting. My understanding was we were going to meet fortnight and that hasn't happened.
So the small working group.
Yes, I understand. I'm precious.
So I'm happy to take any further questions if anyone has any of the action list and the actions undertaken.
Any questions? Councillor Casey.
Item 7, we've just been over, is that working group will start looking at a review of the tourism promotion rates and that wider conversation?
Yeah, we wanted to have a look at all of the things that are being invested from the council in terms of tourism experience, so we can get them all together, so looking at the grants, looking at all of those things, and to the network, so that we can get them into one place and bring them back to council, so you see a full picture.
That's in the resolution.
Any other questions? No. So the updated action list from the Chief Executive, I'm after a move received the please that we resolve that the updated action list from the Chief Executive be received. And there's no items to be removed as such. Sorry? Yep. A move received the please. Councillor Gleart, Councillor Manera, thank you very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to staff reports. First up, we have the adoption of the Water Services Delivery Plan, and I'll hand over to Chief Executive to speak to this report, please.
Thank you, Worship. We do have some guests in the meeting today, so perhaps if I introduce those first and then speak to the paper. We have some on Zoom and some within the room. Perhaps if I start with our colleagues on Zoom. We have Murray Straight there from Murray Business Services, who's been assisting us looking at the financials. This is all related with the local Waters Done Well water delivery service plan. And this is the team that's been pulling together the 3 council work. So we'll just, we've got Mike Wakefield there from Simpson Greer. We've got Dave Foster, who's been providing advice from DIA. Within the room, just so folk know, sorry for the public, know that we've got fancy on that one, but we have Douglas there, Douglas Marshall there. Douglas, if you don't, sorry for those folk behind you, and also Teresa Wooding for those folk behind you. This is the team that's been assisting the 3 councils pulling together the local service. So we have 2 papers to present for your consideration today. They're both important, but for different reasons. One is obviously the Local Waters Done Well Waters Delivery Service Plan, which is a compliance document which is to meet the government requirement, statutory requirement to develop a water services plan that shows the model of delivery and to show sustainability into the future of that model. In this case, the model that has been used is the 3 councils with 1 CCO. The other paper for your consideration is the head of agreement, which has been reached between the 3 councils. The representatives from all 3 councils came together to discuss and confirm a way of working going forward and responsibilities to do so. The heads of agreement reflects that. It also reflects principles of the working together to achieve the best outcomes for the districts involved. The context for the Water Services Plan is that it's refining the model. It For those of you who can go back in time and remember that there were 3 proposed models. There was a standalone business unit model, or a 2-council CCO model, or a multi-council CCO model. It hasn't been a straightforward process in terms of there's been evolving legislation, there's been evolving regulatory requirements and monitoring requirements as we've gone forward. So it hasn't been easy, and it's been a process of gathering information and moving the changing information and requirements as we've gone. We've always used the best information we've had at any given time. We've tested it, used it, and then looked to test it again. Originally, Westland District Council considered the option of a single business unit. It quickly became evident when we saw the regulatory requirements that had been firmed up that the cost of meeting that model clearly outweighed any benefits of using that model. This again has been confirmed as we've gone into the Local Water Well Services Delivery Plan, where you can see that again, the single standalone business unit is not as favourable as the other models. We are also, in terms of aware that it is not the preferred model. The single standalone business unit is not the preferred model of government, and we've seen that in through published articles where there have been councils that have undertaken that approach, and you can see that there has been considerable regulatory and compliance additional costs that they will be incurring to manage that single business unit. In terms of, we've used best endeavours to frame the proposed approach, recognising considerable work is required from all 3 councils to finalise the model and the approach with the assumptions. The plan, if adopted, would be submitted for DIA for approval and sign-off, and the deadline for that is the 3rd of September. The Heads of Agreement document is a key document for us. It provides the rules of engagement for all 3 councils in developing and determining how we want the final entity to operate and deliver for us. Within it, you will see that the key principles that the council has identified for Westland District Council to be able to work with the other 2 councils has been achieved by the representation from Westland District Council at that joint meeting. If you recall, we had Councillor Beard, Councillor Gillette and Your Worship were the representatives, and Francis Tufry from the iwi representation was also present at those meetings. It cements an equal voting rights for each council regardless of size or asset shareholding value at commencement. There is no harmonisation of rates across the 3 councils for a period of time, and that's been identified within the Heads of Agreement. We've dealt with the treatment of assets, the governance of the new entity, iwi representation and participation, and a commitment to drive efficiencies and to reduce burdens on the district ratepayers at every step of the process. There is still a lot of work to be undertaken in the refinement and establishment of a CCO that is to serve the West Coast, and how we can inform our communities along this process to July 2027. The development of these papers has taken an enormous amount of effort and commitment in a very short time frame to make the September deadline. I would like to thank the staff from all the councils, the project team members and the councillor reps who have all worked on this, particularly the Westland District Council folk. It has been a challenging time with a backdrop of a lot of noise and information, both being undertaken in social media, and I know personally you've all had approaches from folk wanting to know more about this particular issue coming before us today. So with that in mind, Your Honour, I'll hand over, if you like. Honour? I think honour's fine, but I'll do worship. I'll hand over to the floor and to the councillors to ask any questions, or the team will be able to assist with that.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Ralph, for that extensive report and walk through your report. As you said, it's been a huge amount of work, and I thank you also for leading, driving and ensuring that we have stayed where we needed to be staying with all this work and involvement in positioning with this potential CCO. Right, over to everybody for questions, clarification, and remembering that we have the invited guests that can certainly answer a lot of your questions and concerns. I'll start with Councillor Casson.
Do you have a preference of the agreement or the plan first, or both at the same time? those questions? Do you want to go through one or the other, or both?
Yes, yes, I think so, the plan, because the agreement then follows that, so start with plan.
Alicia, seeing as we're going through the plan first, as a staff member responsible sitting around the table, maybe standing over on the other side, do you see any gaps or issues in that plan that will affect us adversely or puts us in more risk than the other two councils looking to join as well?
No, so through the chair, no. So the plan is basically built on the long-term plan, our activity management plans and our infrastructure strategy. So it's essentially all the infrastructure that we need going forward for the next.
And also for, councillor Baird.
I'll take it up. Page 51 of the Water Services Delivery Plan. Might be an error. There's a section included there about in the Buller's state of their assets. There's a statement there included about the Westland District Council's infrastructure acceleration fund application and the race course. So
yeah, sorry, that is me. We had the timeframe's been quite tight. We had the legal review over the weekend, and I had moved a component of Part D into Buller's Part B, and not picked up on the fact that I had accidentally added. And I realised it about half an hour after submitting it. Yeah. Sorry, it has been included.
It's interesting read, the water plan, and the description of the infrastructure state for Buller and Grey is quite bleak that I see relative to Westland. So my concern is that the CCO might be there to serve other councils benefit rather than their own. I'm not sure how the modelling reflects that in terms of the allocation of the water charge. The other councils. It's not clear in the modelling, but.
So this may well be one for Douglas. There is, the charging is separated out, capital programmes are separate, and that will reflect in the charging for the other residents in the other two districts. So in terms of the operational costs, then
Excuse me if I can just interrupt, Teresa, please, no photos taken from the public arena. Thank you. Of people at the council table without their consultation first, thank you. Can I have that acknowledged? Thank you. It's not appropriate behaviour. Sorry, Teresa, please carry on.
yeah, there is no harmonisation for a set period of time. However, by joining up, and this is something we, like with legal advice as well, it is important to ensure that by moving into a joined up CCO, that you can get the efficiencies that come from having a dedicated water team. So it's important as well from a financial perspective when they're doing the borrowing, that when you're looking outwards, you're getting those efficiencies. But within it, and from a charging perspective, you are separated out. There is no harmonisation until such a time that it is agreed that harmonisation would be appropriate.
Teresa, on that harmonisation, I've got a concern because at the moment there's an element of time that we can have before that's reconsidered, because it's something we haven't agreed, we've agreed not to have at this stage, and the government has supported that. So 5 years' time, if harmonisation is allowed, and we don't support it, but Buller and Grey do, that puts us into quite a weighted.
So this is probably one that Mike, as our legal representative, might be able to talk to. There are different types of decisions, and some types of decisions would need to have agreement from all councils. Mike, could you add to that?
That's my concern though, if we don't, but those two agree, we're outweighted in that decision.
There are
Mike, sorry.
Sorry, the voice on the wall might have something to add to this. Thank you, Mayor. It's a great question. But you'll see in the heads of agreement, which is the second item that we'll come to, the approach to shareholder decision making has been flagged as either unanimous decisions or majority decisions. And so at this point in time, it's important to note that the heads of agreement document or the commitment or collaboration agreement is really just about the process that the councils have agreed to work towards to establish this functioning water organisation. There will still be, through the work involved in agreeing the shareholders agreement, an additional piece where the councils each will have input and need to agree on the sorts of decisions that will be made by either majority decision or by unanimous decision of the three councils. And so to that issue, your one around harmonisation and when and how that decision might be made, whether it be 5 years or longer, there is potential for that to be a requirement for unanimous decision. But we're not quite at that stage yet. That will happen as part of the next piece of negotiation.
So it's important to know now then that getting to that next stage, that we recognise those points that could be potential issues down the track, so we manage them appropriately at start up.
Yeah.
Because I hate to get into a situation where down the track we've missed that opportunity and then we don't have that, it's a majority vote, and so yeah, we don't have that ability to
No, so that's right. So the shareholders agreement will be a single point of a single piece of the foundational documents that will address and clarify which type of decision requires a unanimous call from the shareholders or a majority decision. And so there will be two categories effectively that we will need to agree amongst the three councils. So that will come back to you. You're not losing the opportunity to have input on that now by entering into, agreeing to adopt this water service delivery plan.
Thank you. Do you also foresee that will stay within this initial setup stages and not go to the next level where we may not have that same sort of involvement?
Right. Sorry, I'll just mute it. That's correct. The shareholders agreement is a document that has to be approved by the three councils rather than a delegated group. So each council will agree the terms of that shareholders agreement, and that will formally establish the shareholders representative forum, which will then make decisions in reliance on delegations from the three councils to that decision-making body.
Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Page 115, we have a table showing our population, and over the next 9 years we're predicting a north of 50% growth in our population, which I would probably hazard guess is ambitious. It would be great to achieve that, but I can't see that happening.
It's been about 7% over the prior 10 years, just for the record. I look at that.
I knew you would have the exact numbers to throw at me, thank you. So, I mean, to go from 7% to 50% growth is probably more than ambitious. That obviously comes with a financial repercussion come year 9 if we don't have 13,808 heads of population to split the cost between. Am I correct?
Sorry, were you saying it should be 0.5%?
It is not. There's a north of 50% increase in population from the current year, 8,901, through to the year of 33-34 at 13,808. That's somewhere north of 50% again.
So for comparison's sake, in 2015 we had a population of 8,670 people, and over the following 10 years we got to 9,200 odd, which is about 7% growth. And yeah, apparently we're going to see from 9,000 to 13,500 people in the next 10 years.
I think the numbers we've been using through that year has been about 0.5%, and even that's been public. So let's just review that table and just make sure it tweaks, because it does look over the top.
So, thank you. But the next part of that is obviously we drop down from our population count to our total connections. The total connections are doing a similar trend upwards, which
pretty much everything is.
Yeah, based off the top number. So if that top number isn't right, then I suspect the connections to water, being drinking water, wastewater and stormwater are all equally challenged.
We'll check all those and make sure they're correct. This table, I think, looks like it's sitting out to one side from the other main table that's been driven, but we'll make sure that's all correct.
Yeah, for Graham Muller as well, they had very modest growth over the tables. It was 4% or something like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Whilst I'm holding the floor before anyone else jumps in, page 165 of the document, we're talking about due to median household incomes and percentages of this versus the charge for your water. Again, I suspect matched with inflation growth, that would be nice. I don't think everyone gets an inflation matched increase every year. Those, I guess everyone's read the article from one of two Cadigan brothers this week, and around the cost of those who are on fixed incomes versus those aren't, in the great amount of money per dollar that comes in, or $10 that comes in, and the challenges there. So I guess whilst it's nice to talk about median income statistically, it's probably the right thing to do, we have a real social issue outside of that, that is fixed income earners, be that aging population or be that other people at other stages of their life that are on fixed incomes or aren't at the best, you know. I think we just need to flag that pretty clearly, that it's nice to match it off the median, which is statistically the right thing to do. There's a social lens here as well.
Sorry, Councillor Gillett.
Through the chair, there's a few things I want to ask, but I'll just work my way through it. Yep. Just following on from Councillor Casson. When I looked at the demographics and that average salary income, you've got 20% currently, from my calculations, are age 65 and over. So 80% represents that average income. So it would be, it is a challenge, because one would assume that most of the 65 are not deriving income, they're using savings or superannuation. So, 2.6% turns into maybe something like 8% of your total income just to service the water charge.
Madam Chair, the test I had was I put my mother and her superannuation into that and came up with sort of what George talking about. And it is difficult because you get, when you're looking at a medium, you get very much skewed. And also the medium for Buller and Westland around that starts at about 103, 104 now, whereas Grey's around 120. So you get that. The West Coast average is around about 110, 111. So, you know, it is a number, but when you bring it back to reality, it is quite difficult. That is why in this document we also added and really put some emphasis on things like the rates rebate schemes, DIA, looking at this new scheme where you can effectively park charges. But we also just highlighted the importance that all the councils on the coast and the water company have got to work very closely together, because everyone's, it's that one pocket you're pulling from. So it's tricky, and it's one of the risks we've highlighted in this plan, is that challenge. So there's no way, there's no way of avoiding it, but we need to bring it to the fore so that we're talking with government all the time about things we need to do better to help people in these situations. So
the rebates mentioned in the document, and you made reference to the possibility of another rebate being available. How realistic is that related to water charges?
Yes, sorry, through Madam Chair, it would be to do with the water company and to do with council, and it has got some legs because it's getting a lot of publicity about it. I, in previous local authority chief financial roles, have used that mechanism, not extensively. It's a different one we've used. You know, it's not stopping, telling people they don't have to pay, but it's allowing them to postpone pay. And it might just be enough to make life possible and bearable. The reason it's important to talk about it is that we just need to encourage the government to be looking at this, given the system of free place.
Postponing the payment to me is just prolonging the stress for some of these elderly people or younger people or middle class people that just can't afford these extra costs.
Yeah, through the Madam Chair, look, I have used it in the past. You've got to do justice about how you use it, and that'll be the roles the government are looking for, because clearly, you know, for some people, it would be the wrong decision to do that. If you're a younger person, if you're an older person, it's a bit more there. But it's just, again, we just need to highlight that challenge, and there's no easy way around it.
So, it's one area that really does bug us all. I mean, what sort of forethought was given to that aspect when this was designed or when created? I mean, there's some serious gaps there and serious implications, and this seems to be something that's just being developed as we go. Dave, you might be able to help me on this. I mean, you know, I feel like a lot of the sums and everything that we're dealing with have been done to sort of appease DIA or what's potentially required from the government, as opposed to what is really needed to make this work and be viable and feasible out in our communities.
Pardon me, I had myself on mute. Well, I think there's a lot of been said in the media and in opposition that this is something that the government's pushed. And I think it has been, but I think if you go back to the original stuff, this has been around since about 2022, even before 2022. And it's really arisen because councils and other people have been looking at the LTPs and realising that the level of capital spend that's required on ageing infrastructure is starting to get very high. We've got a number of councils that are approaching their debt limits. And we've got a number of councils who, when they look forward at their LTPs, see themselves being very close or breaching their debt limits. So the bottom line is the work that's being done is being done by the councils and needs to be funded. People are attacking this solution because I think the solution is actually the first time that people are really looking at the numbers in terms of what's in behind here. You know, when I look at LTPs, including your own LTP, I see some very, very alarming increases in water charges. That partly comes down through councils' philosophies on how they fund services. It partly comes down to the debt levels that the councils are taking on. So for this work to be done, it's effectively going to have to be done by borrowing, or it's going to have to be done from revenue. Obviously, you've got limits on how much you can go with revenue, and you've got limits on how much you can go in regards to debt, and those two things are very strongly interlinked. So the philosophy in behind the companies is that the companies will give greater leverage, and that greater leverage, which effectively is more borrowing, which is going to incur more costs. But it is going to allow the spreading of those costs over a longer period of time. And in doing so, that will make it more affordable for people.
So where are the other, oh, sorry, I'll let Patrick go first.
Hi, well, it's Patrick. Yeah, it's awkwardly split over 2 pages, unfortunately, but straddling page 161 and 162 is I think the rates forecast, but there's no label on the axis of the graph, unfortunately. So whether it's $6,000 or 6,000 pounds of mince or anything else, I'm not entirely sure. I presume it's dollars. Now, is that our rates specifically, or is that just our water rates? Because one would be a more dilute figure than the other. But yeah, just wanted to know first of all what that is, and that was a question for that.
So through you, Madam Chair, the numbers are all to do with water, so they're either to do with the blue colour chart to do with the water multi-company, so we've got all three together. The second one is to do with the standalone business unit, and the third one is the numbers we've taken from your financial statements and the LTP regarding waters, and projected out what we would see the targeted rates covering, and for all three they're the same: drinking water, wastewater and stormwater. So that's where that data comes from, and it's dollars, you're right.
Yeah, thanks. My next question. I appreciate that your projections are your projections. Why is there such a difference? Because what I don't really understand is that most of the cost relating to this infrastructure is physical. So cement, steel, labouring hours, etc., etc. Where are these magical economies of scale coming from? Is it a shared Microsoft Office subscription or a Xero account? Where is the saving actually coming from? Or is it just assumed that scale is going to afford some sort of savings? Because a ton of cement's still going to cost what a ton of cement costs to put in the ground. I I'm not convinced that there's going to be such a differential. I feel like these are rosy assumptions.
Through you, Madam Chair, and that's probably one of the more challenging assumptions. It is got some support from international literature that when you get size together, you do find the ability to bulk up and undertake that sort of work. But it will be the one that needs to be followed. It's certainly not going to be, as you say, some cheaper zero licenses or that. It is really gruntly figuring out your maintenance contracts and your civil works contracts. How can you group them over the coast and make that work? So,
oh no, just to sort of expand on that, like I had a leak out the footpath on the street the other day, truck turned up and got dealt with, but fuel's going to cost the same, labouring, the labour unit's going to cost the same. I don't see that saving is. Yeah, I don't see that saving is self-evident. I mean, the geographic burden is going to remain regardless. So, yeah, there's locally owned building, plumbing, and electrical businesses dotted up and down the west coast. It's not all just Fletcher's due to economies of scale.
That'll be the big piece of work. You have to go down the way of the multi-CCO for the board of directors to get their head around with their CEO. That'll be where there are a lot of time spent trying to figure out how to make that work.
And my subsequent question, I'm glad you mentioned the board of directors, is we're introducing new staff and new layers of bureaucracy, which to me is new costs that don't currently exist, and those have got to be not just met, but then offset by other savings, and I'm not.
One of the, sorry, Madam Chair, to answer that question, one of the things about this water company is that its staff will get up and they will think about nothing but water issues, as will the board of directors when they're here. So there will be that commercial focus on that activity. Yes, there is a need to put in place some sort of layer of management. But the thing I'm sure they'll be looking at is what are the services you need to have owned inside the company and what are the ones you can buy outside. So other water entities are setting up in this space. So you will find some of that efficiency and bulk buying will come from being able to contract with these other entities who have the scale and size, and therefore there'll be a benefit from that. So there will be some addition, that's correct. The other thing that will change, and again, these numbers, they're sort of at the low end, but what do you really need to run this company effectively? Well, bricks and mortar will be something you need to be judicious on, make sure you keep minimal there. How you run your IT systems will need a total rethink and understanding the type of data you need. So we are tuning something different, and there will be, I'm absolutely sure of this, over the country, some great efficiency and changes, and then it's a matter of here being able to jump on and join those as well, as on a contractual basis, type thing. So, yeah.
Murray, I've got a question for you. I've lost sight of Murray. Oh, no. Murray, are you there still? Yes, cool.
Yes, I am. Thank you, sorry.
Yes, I wanted to hear from you about the costs. I mean, we're looking at the figures and they're horrifying, but do you believe these are the final figures that we're seeing, or have we still got a lot of work to do to fine tune these?
It's a good question you're asking there, and I suppose if we think back to the original costs that came out, were based on a series of assumptions. And as we've worked through the process, we've tried to make sure that we understand what those assumptions are about and how they do relate to the costs. I don't think I could sit here and say these are your final costs. There's still, with all modelling, there is a degree of assumptions still to be made, and this model here is no different from that. And so I couldn't quantify that. Otherwise, we would have dealt with that. But I wouldn't sit here and say these are the final costs. I think what is clear to us, though, is that the moving to the joint CCO provides the district with the lower cost to operate the infrastructure going forward. I think that part is very clear. If that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
On page 182, it looks like you've extracted from the LTP, this is LTP, the operating revenue related to water services in order to model how Westland would operate as a standalone unit. Is that where that data's come from?
Yes, it's based on, yeah, that's correct.
So that would, to me, confirm that the LTP modelling is still valid as well?
Certainly, that's right. Yeah, to answer your question, yes.
So this is following on Councillor Phelps' comments about the perceived cost savings, because if you project out the rates modelling in our LTP and compare it with the modelling in this document, the document gives a conclusion that the multi-CCO is lower than a standalone. But my sort of calculations show it's sort of like the other way. So I think assumptions are not clear. Only time will tell. And then the other issue, like as I mentioned before, is the state of these other councils' assets compared to ours. That's why I've always favoured just standalone for other various reasons as well. Our geographic situation, our assets are relatively good. I mean, we only need a wastewater treatment plant and some stormwater pump upgrades. That's our major thing. There's pipes that need replacing. But you can talk about underinvestment, as Dave Foster alluded to. You can look at Buller's investment plan and Craig's, and they've been way behind what they've. So there's no doubt that there's free water issues around the country that have to be fixed. It's just trying to get the appropriate model to do it. And standalone is definitely a government option. I strongly feel the heat from central government that that's not what we want to do, but it is the option. That's the model that I still prefer to go down.
Is part of the appeal of this that it takes it out of the politicians' hands, if you like? Because I can see why, frankly, this issue exists all around the country, is that successive councils all around the country have put an insufficient amount of money into their infrastructure over the years to try and keep rates low, and the easiest way to get the cost of something like that is to actually just not pay what you actually need to pay into it. Whereas what you'll end up with is a CCO that won't be argued with and will charge what needs to be charged so that there's enough money to go into underground infrastructure. Is that part of the driver of this, do you think, being a preferred model?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, I think that it's important to remember there's a few things here. There's obviously the regulation around what you've got to do, and there's a regulation around charging. That's a real big change here. So it's going to force the companies or the standalone business units that they replace to charge appropriately to get that. The question you asked before, which we also need to remember in tandem, that companies under the local government funding agency, which is where these entities all borrow, have quite different covenants of borrowing ability. So they can lend up to 500% of their income turnover, compared to that classic council strategy of 175. That's like a real big advantage to the CCO. And under this model, which uses funds from operations as its freedom, it focuses on funding its capital, its OPEX, and its interest on debt. It doesn't get too worried about loan debt repayment. That's a bit of a classic corporate way you do business. If you pay people, you can. We all like to get it down, but having a bit of debt is always good. The debt, as you know in the report, does drop away. The point I'd make about not harmonising, which gives you your protection, is that you are only paying for the stuff you need to do in Westland. So if you are worried about Bullock and Grey, that's their call, but you're not paying for that. The issue to look at is, though, if you're within a company with the others, is there adequate headroom, debt, i.e. below that 500%? And the answer is yes, there is. If there was an event, let's just say the Alpine fault event, and you need to go out and borrow as the water company, yes, there is ability. Or you find something, either in one of the three council areas, that needs to be done that's not thought about in this plan. Is there enough there? And so the thing that I think you can take some comfort from here is that that mechanism, which is going to be heavily used by these companies, you do have an ability, if you find something, to do it. But the key thing is you're not harmonising with the others. So you've got that protection in terms of the charter.
That's available standalone as well.
It is, but it's that debt covenant issue that the standalone hooks you on. That's been, deliberately done that way.
Yeah.
Can we explore that harmonisation comment a bit further? You're saying we won't be paying for the costs up the road and further up the road, both of which, by rough maths, are about double the investment in infrastructure in the next 9 years that we'll be doing. Not quite, one's more, one's less. we've talked about harmonisation dates that are short to or mid-term review. So up until the point of harmonisation, I understand we're not supporting culverts in the ground and pipes and everything else up there and up there. Are you saying it's not going to be the case going forward? For clarity for myself and I guess everybody watching and listening and currently not.
Your shareholders agreement will spell out absolutely clearly that Westland people are paying for Westland things, or are paying for Pollock things, right? What you must make sure though, is where you're using that one entity to buy things for the benefit of all, that you get that benefit spread over. So one of the things, and this is getting down to specifics, but you will be looking really carefully at your costing mechanisms to make sure that you know that you're paying. So your targeted rating system you've used really well here over the years, that will be maintained, perhaps in a different form. But that will ensure that your harmonisation over the regions only done under certain circumstances, you remain within your particular TLA area. So that protection will be there. That shareholders agreement Mike's referred to will be, I would think, pretty detailed, explaining how that works, so that you've got comfort.
Yeah, and if I can just clarify too, because when the discussion isn't about the CCO model here today, that's decided. And the figures will be defined more and worked on considerably more once we ratify where we're going with today's decisions that are on the table. Which is correct, isn't it? You won't spend time doing any other sort of financial crossovers or benchmarks or investigative work until we ratify what we're going to do today. Is that correct, Murray? Dave, sorry, no, Murray or Dave, either one.
Apologies, I keep having my microphone, I keep turning it off. There's still more work to be done, that's right. And when it moves across to the company, they will also have decisions that they need to make as well, which will affect things going forward.
Thank you. Dave, what happens if we don't adopt today?
6 days we're in breach.
I mean, we've got other, perhaps you might like to explain about the other single business units around the country and councils that have gone online. What's been the consequences? Have there been any so far?
I think the first consequences that you're going to face is, are you going to be able to get a water service delivery plan in place? Right? And I would suggest, given that you've got to get it into us by the 3rd of September, and you're going to have it adopted by the council prior to it coming to us so that it can be signed off, I would suggest you haven't really got a hope in Hades of getting a water service delivery plan into us. That then means you've got a statutory breach that will be addressed through us through the normal processing.
And can you please outline what those are?
The first is looking at appointing a facilitator to come in and assist to get this thing done. The second one is to look to appoint an expert, or specialist, sorry, is the term, who would effectively come in to work through the solution. But it is a much higher level of intervention.
And at that point, are the costs ours to bear?
Yes, right through it. The cost will always be yours to bear.
Right, and then if the controller is appointed or comes in, is that to work with the council, or is that to tell council what and how they need to do what's ahead of them?
If you get into the specialist is a higher level of intervention, so they don't have to work through the council. They'll work to resolve the issue, which is getting water services sorted.
And what do those say at the table at that time?
Through the Mayor, I can probably assist here as well. The facilitator has a lesser degree of power. They will come in and work with the council to ensure that it is able to prepare a valid, compliant water service delivery plan, but the specialist has substantive powers where it can direct the council to adopt, which removes the ability of the council to exercise discretion on that matter.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beard.
Chair, we still have that off-ramp option that we laid down the track. Yes. Obviously, whatever is cost to us, it's getting is on that back, but we do still have that.
Yes. And the agreement was, and Teresa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the agreement was that those off-ramps stay there right through this, and then when we go into the formalised legal agreement, there is an exit strategy that can fall into place after 3 years, because that's what we've all agreed on in Greymouth at negotiation point.
Again, might want to add in, yes.
Yeah, it's not
It's written into the agreement the way, but to be clear, the costs are then, and including in the impact. There's also an expectation that if there's a sense that you may want to, you would start the discussions, because it does have an impact on the other two councils.
Yeah, and I might just draw on that a little bit. So the way in which this first piece of legislation operates is it required you to consult and make a decision on your delivery model, which, as the Mayor pointed out, that decision has been made. The second step is to go through this exercise and adopt the water service delivery plan that reflects that earlier decision your council has made. Beyond that point, the water service delivery plan will be submitted and then reviewed and accepted, we hope, by DIA, at which point the expectation is that you then deliver on the implementation plan that's been set out in this water service delivery plan. If you, as a council, decide to do something different at a later date, there is another set of process requirements which you would need to work through, and that would involve another round of consultation on your delivery model to allow you to change TAC, and then you would need to get DIA's approval of that change of TAC as well. So it's a pretty complicated exercise if you did want to pivot from the decision you've already made.
Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarity on that. When you're talking about, borrowing, if you stand alone, just an estimate of what you would borrow as opposed to joining with Ray and Laura.
From memory, you can, if you're standing alone, so your maximum will be 175%.
Yeah.
Right? But your Westland district borrowing needs, I think, get up around near the 330, 350 mark once you've got the hooker ticker treatment plant on. So
2019 and year 26, 27.
So I wasn't too far off then. So you've got that issue,
yeah,
right? And as I say, that's been put in place deliberately by the process or the LGFA to give some flexibility using this FFO approach, which is funds.
Yeah.
And it's purely based on you pay your debt off when you've got to a point that your infrastructure is now humming and providing what it needs to do at a good quality, and you can turn your cash now to debt. It doesn't require you to address your debt like you would do with a home mortgage on day one.
Thank you.
Who was next on there with the hand up? Was that you, Patrick? Sorry.
Why CCO? Can I ask, in terms of all the different ways you can structure it? CCI, as I understand it, and maybe wrong with this, but is to have effectively running like a privately owned business that's owned by the council, whereas to me, this is simply something that we can do and do as an internal function. It's not expected to necessarily return a profit, you're just meant to inject money into it if it's needed to have go into it. So if it's not expected to turn a dividend, it's never going to be sold off or anything like that, why a CCO as a model versus another structure?
So Chair, my thought today, Foster from the DIA, because it's a national decision, and get him, Dave, wouldn't mind just talking about that.
Well, I think the critical thing is what other structure could you come up with? You've either got an in-house business unit or you've got something which is external, which is by definition, by what you're saying, is going to be council controlled. So your discussion around the table has effectively been that you want an organisation which is controlled by the council. So therefore, it's either an internal unit where you're on your own, then you run into the issues in terms of size and scale, or you're going to put it into another outside organisation, that could be a trust or it could be a company. Most people have discounted trusts because they're quite difficult. There is a consumer trust in terms of the option here. None of the councils have gone down the track of a consumer trust because that effectively takes it completely outside council and puts everything under the consumer trust. So I think the critical thing in the mix of it is, and I'm struggling, why you think it could be other than a CCO.
Well, no, I guess my question is, what I'm leading to is, what level of control, if any, will we still have under a CCO model, so ratepayers can still exercise control over what is ultimately delivering a service for them?
Well, that's an element that will be in terms of the documents that will be put in place through the Constitution. There are other elements in the legislation in terms of a water services strategy and the extent to which they go. A lot of people are saying that these CCOs are actually under more control of the council than a normal CCO. But I can let Mike elaborate on that. That's a view that's actually come out of Simpson Grierson.
And if I can, Patrick, that concern of yours that you just raised is actually managed within the heads of agreement.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Councillor Kingston, we need to sort of cover off on the heads of agreement as well with this.
I was going to try and assist with the transition.
Transition.
So the bottom of page 3 of the report to council, we have a table with a green line and blue line and a couple of purple lines. The bottom right hand corner states a stand-up business unit is going to cost ratepayers $4,999 in the year 2034 versus a CCO $4,285. We've heard lots of talk of assumption. We've heard lots of talk of future work to be done. How confident are we that $714 gap is going to stay close to where it is, get bigger or smaller? Ultimately, that's the key piece here today for us to decide. Who would like to answer it?
Well, then well.
I think one thing that is important, because you'll see that table isn't in the water service delivery plan, because the water service delivery plan is specifically looking at the chosen option. So the level of analysis on standalone business unit, both of them were done for public consultation at the level they could be for it, just in terms of the timeline. But in terms of the water service delivery plan, you'll see clearly that the tables is in-house for councils up until the transition and then onwards. And we would not be doing any further analysis on what a standalone business unit would be. So, yeah, in terms of any further gap,
I think what Councillor Kesson is, sorry, I'm just trying to pull out exactly what he said. I think what he's asking is the firmness of those figures, because we've been basing a lot, and certainly based a lot when we reach out for LTP on assumptions that we didn't know, that weren't firmed up. I think what he's asking is exactly how firm are these figures? How confident that these are set in stone?
If I can interject there. So you're saying the $4,999 won't have any further work done to it from when we consulted on it, that's fine. We now have the $4,285, which we're saying is part of the CCO, which you're saying has had further work and we're further confident in. So are you seeing that going up or down or staying constant, because that maintains the gap effectively to the historic number, which gives us the financial model of, is it a better decision for our people?
Yeah, so there are absolutely some assumptions still that you can see at the end of the water service delivery. But as Murray and Douglas have noted from the modelling, and they'll be able to speak to it more, there is always a difference between, it is always shown that financially it is more preferable to be in the water services CCO. So in terms of what the exact difference would be, there are a bunch of decisions that would need to be made in terms of how the water services CCO is set up, in terms of how the services are done, how the staff are changing. There's a lot of decisions that will turn out for the final number. So, but the difference is expected to still remain.
I was just going to say, so through the chair, there's absolutely really no guarantee of that, say that $700 difference. There's just, it could be down to $100 difference. If the CCO decide to go and buy 5 new vehicles and have a multi or whatever building and everything else, isn't it? There's no guarantee for the ratepayers.
Madam Chair, maybe the two big things I would suggest impacts either or. So one is if you think about your biggest bit of capital, that's your hockey ticket, basically trip up, happens under either option. It doesn't matter, your tender price, if it's up or down, those numbers change, right? Now, actually that drives the CCO is your efficiency gains, and that benefit of being in a larger entity driving that. And the third thing is the way that the CCO uses borrowing and drives that efficiency through your charge. So they're the three main things. And I know you say it respectfully, but whether they buy a green car or red car, that at the end of the day is not really making the difference here respectfully. It's those three big factors that give that CCO that advantage to trigger these charges.
This is just a very brief one, and forgive me if this is something you haven't seen, but let's say we go with this, 5 years time, whatever, it's really not working out and people are really unhappy with it. Can we get out in on 6 months notice or not? Yeah.
That's part of what we've been, that's the exit strategy, and we've been talking about that as to what the time frame would be to advise the others that we're not happy and the reasons why.
I think I said 6 months or something.
Yeah, and then we take our assets out with us. We don't, and our debt.
And it's not even necessarily going to get affected that, but I think having that there and the risk that anyone would pull out if it wasn't working does give a pretty good incentive for whoever's involved with that model to make it work, basically. So,
which is what you've got to have in there.
Yeah,
otherwise
it's just a hostage to potentially what may become a model.
And that's why it's so important for us to have that off-ramps while we're going through this process, but have the exit strategy in place once this is up and going to protect all of us.
But if we did want to get out, we'd have to show what our plan was to DIA, is that right? So,
and consult with them and advise them as well, and that would be the best practice anyway.
So can I just, I wonder whether or not it's useful just to recap that, the water services delivery plan that's been provided to you today has been based on the best information we have to hand right now, based on the assumptions we have to hand right now. For the purposes of compliance for DIA, to make the September the 3rd deadline, to enable them to see if the model that we have already decided on to go forward with will look sustainable based on the information we have and the assumptions we put in the service plan to go forward for sustainability. That's what we're being asked to look at today. There is a whole tranche of work that is going to have to take place after this process has been adopted or not. It has to take place that is then about framing, delivering, thinking about that whole framework of that entity that has to be built. All of that work needs to have to take place. That's when you get down to the concrete figures, to the assumptions, to the communication, so people totally understand what you're doing. That was not intended for this. This is to get DIA's comfort and sign off that they look at the paper and say those two things. I'm not speaking for you, Dave, but that's my understanding, that they will review it and look at it and sign it off, accept it, reject it, or come back with comments. That's what this document is for. The heads of agreement is about how we're going to do the work that's actually going to deliver the CCO that meets Westland's needs. That's what we're talking about today. So we can go through the figures if you want to, but we're always going to come back to the same answer for you, which is it's based on the assumptions we know of today, and the figures, while they've been put into the model, are being delivered out through this way. They will change as we go and nail down more assumptions and have more figures come through. I just can't tell you what they look like right now. And I don't believe the team can tell you.
So through the chair, it also matches our current LTP figures for the projects that we're looking at expecting.
So we know the figures for Westland are right. We know that. We know that the figures are right. What they do with the model to make it into the CCO is where it starts to become one of three. And that's the work that the team has been doing. So this is for the DIA purpose, for the 3rd, and whether you consider whether you wish to adopt or not. I think what we've heard from Dave is that if we don't adopt this paper to go forward for that process, for acceptance or rejection and commentary, then we would have that other process that we would have to go through. And I don't think we've over-egged that or over-exaggerated that process in any way, shape or form as we have progressed through this process. It's a considerable impost on the ratepayer. Paul.
Your wishes. We talked before about, said about the shareholding, yes, the inequity of the shareholding with Westfield at 22.3%. But we also established that that there's quite a distinction between the shareholding, that nominal shareholding, and the decision-making power of the shareholders more than. So there's a distinction between that. However, given that Grey is at 54%, Buller is at 23.7%, and we're at 22.3%, going forward, could that be recast on a weighting basis of not just population, but also assets and distance?
Assets is the driver of this already, isn't it?
Yeah. Dave, can you, Mike, sorry, can you answer that at all?
I didn't quite catch all of the question, but what I understood it to be was, if it's assets now, could it be something different later? The answer to that is yes. This heads of agreement records this net asset approach to shareholding as the initial shareholding. And in terms of your question, I think you were asking whether a mixed approach or a weighted approach could be used. Yes, we have been involved in other discussions where it's a proportionate approach based on net assets and connections, for example, which populates in a particular percentage that can then be used for the shareholding. But the agreement that's been reached so far and that's tabled in this heads of agreement is a net asset model as the initial shareholding.
Are we moving to that?
I actually moved to that.
One more, yes.
Well, I just want to have a general comment now. When we talk about the fundamentals of this whole scheme, I think that people will look back with anger on this and will ask the question, just when did we lose the ability the affordability to remain in our own homes in terms of rates and water bills going forward. And sadly, I think that it will all come back to this moment in time. So we're on the verge of creating a whole new layer of bureaucracy that will basically put it on a similar footing to a fifth council on the West Coast. Basically, I mean, it's going to have its own directors, it's going to have a CEO, it's going to have a CFO, and it's going to have all the paraphernalia that goes with that. And yes, and if anyone thinks that this is going to achieve savings, then it's delusional. This is less about the public health than it is about politics, and it all goes back to, of course, the tragedy of Havelock Mill and the knee-jerk reaction to that by the previous Labor government. From that, they come up with the three waters, and then they, rather than doing a sensible thing to get DIA to target underperforming councils, they instead homogenise it across the country and steamroll it around every council under this three waters thing, which was going to confiscate the assets as well. along comes the change in the government, and despite all the promises that we had with that, it's basically the same scheme under a different name and slightly different new guise. And we are now faced with the inevitability of an unaffordable scheme, and it's I think it's a really sad state of affairs. We put it on to future generations.
Well, I think we all agree with you, but it comes down to where we're going, and we can't change the past and decisions and behaviours and what was done and what wasn't done.
No.
And the decision we've got to make is a very grave one, and the impact is phenomenal. We're all well aware of that.
Yes, but there is choice, though, isn't there? Although they say that there's no choice whatsoever, but there was a choice, and then they took that choice off the table.
Why don't you ask Dave?
Earlier.
You asked Dave then, if you've got a question for Dave.
Yeah.
We outlined that we're going to facilitate it and
So do you want to ask Dave a
Yes,
question?
well, we know what the threat has been, is that we've got until the first week of September to file an alternative plan, if that were the case, and it's not going to happen. But why was it changed? Why then, Dave? Why was it taken off the table? We were initially given the option of a standalone unit, and we went through that motion at this council. We put it in our LTP, and before we knew it, that was off the table.
Dave, that's a question for you. Can you answer that?
Well, it is, and I will answer it. It isn't really us that took us off the table. I mean, we did express a concern, understanding the issues that are coming forward across the country and the level of work that needs to be done, about small councils actually being able to put in plans that were going to reach muster effectively. And we still have that concern over small councils. We know that the bigger groups have got bigger elements, and even if you look at, which you won't have seen, but LGFA have put out elements in terms of their guidance around approving the sort of effectively a 5 times debt multiplier. It is geared on size, right? So the smaller councils are going to have a free funds from operations ratio that's higher than the big organisations. And that FFO level, to get that level of debt, which you need to get, means that you have to put the price up. So, fundamentally, the model produces the best result for the ratepayers. And that's evident in the modelling. And you can challenge the modelling in terms of what's in there. But as a person who's sat around the sort of modelling table and done a lot of modelling over the years, as Douglas says, it is really fundamentally in fact that a CCO will treat debt in an entirely different way to what the council treats debt at. So rather than having a debt strategy which has a limit, they will be having a debt level which is effectively the target. Right? And so they won't be looking to say we'll go up to a maximum of this. They'll be looking to say this is the debt level that we will be looking to hold. That's how they'll set their revenue. So the solution is in your hands, and it was the council who determined that you would go with a multi-council CCO whenever you decided that.
Under juris, I will add, that was most certainly under juris that opted for the CCO. It wasn't by choice. The choice was there, and I still maintain that the choice was put to us initially, and then it was taken away.
We're going to have to sort of move around and get these questions and move, because we've still got quite a bit to cover. Councillor Neal.
Yeah, so DIA are saying that they don't think lots of the small councils have got the ability, but they've all accepted all our LTPs where we said how we were going to do it. So I think that's a bit unfair. if a facilitator comes in to help us develop a plan, if we go standalone, a facilitator will come in and help us develop a plan, and we will pay them, but they will help us develop a standalone plan, if that's what we're still wanting.
I couldn't comment on what the facilitator would do. That would be a thing that would have to be worked through. And just addressing your comment in regards to LTP, the DIA has no power to approve or otherwise an LTP. So we haven't accepted your LTP.
Okay,
You've done an LTP. It's been audited by the Office of the Auditor General. You've adopted an LTP. We haven't accepted it. We've simply received it.
So the Auditor General has accepted it, my apologies. However, it has still been accepted and approved at a governmental level. In that way. So if a facilitator comes in and helps us develop a standalone plan, yeah, we'll have that cost, but we won't have all the costs of the Board of Directors. So it could still be cheaper.
Through the chair, you will have the costs of meeting the new regulatory monitoring standards. You will also have to consult every 5 years as whether or not your community wishes you to stay at a standalone. There will be.
But we would do that as part of the LTP consultation.
It's a different set of requirements, Jane. Different legislation comes in that controls which is in it.
Would it be useful if I quickly chip in on this facilitator point?
Yes, please.
Yes, so the provisions in the, and this is for you, Councillor Neal, the provisions in the Preliminary Arrangements Act that provide for government intervention are able to be engaged where the Minister believes that it would be beneficial for a facilitator because a council is not able to submit a water service delivery plan, or in the case of a group, the group is not able to agree the terms for adoption of a joint water service delivery plan. So if your council was today to decide not to go with the draft that you've got before you, the Minister has powers to be able to appoint a facilitator and then set the terms of reference as the Minister considers appropriate. And those terms of reference could, for example, be work with this council to see if they can agree the joint WSDP. So we don't yet know what the Minister will do.
Mike, you're on screen, still a couple for you. No offence to anybody else in the room, but as the only lawyer online or in the room, you've looked through the heads up agreement. Can you give us your view on that? Any issues or risks that opens us up to? Any advantage or disadvantage our council's at over the other two we're looking to join with?
No, look, the heads of agreement, just so that everybody's aware, has used in large parts the DIA template, which is being used by all other councils who have decided to create CCOs as a multi-council CCO. So the document itself is effectively standard, other than some bespoke governance arrangements which have been agreed between the group that worked up the heads of agreement. As I said earlier, it sets out and maps out a process that all councils are committing to adhere to, albeit with the ability to exit if that's the decision the council wants to make. And the schedule that is attached sets out the initial commercial term sheet. Now, these points in that commercial term sheet will flow into the foundational documents for the water organisation. But as I said earlier, that is the second piece here. Once we get through the water service delivery plan, have that accepted, then we kick off the formalised incorporation of the entity. And that's where the commercial terms will be documented in appropriate ways with some further negotiation to make sure that all councils are comfortable with them through the process that's been mapped out.
Cool. Thank you, Mike. Supplementary to that, 5.1 on the document, bottom of page 6, shows we're having 1/3 of the cost. Somewhere else it states we're having 1/3 of the vote. Somewhere else it states we're not having 1/3 of the shares. Can you provide your commentary on that? Does anyone better suited to answer that question? Can someone provide some clarity to myself and anyone else wanting some of that?
Yep, sure. So the shareholding versus the cost sharing and voting is intended to be separate. One thing I'd just note to clarify there is that the initial shareholding is the initial shareholding. We've had that discussion as part of this meeting, but it was agreed by the group that a net asset value initially would be a fair approach to document in the heads of agreement. The shareholder decision making is separate, and it's been agreed that there should be equal voting
Mark, can we just put mutes on for everyone except for Mike? Sorry, we're getting feedback, you can't hear properly.
No, he sort of.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Mike, sorry.
Not a problem. I'll just pick up on the shareholder decision-making point. The heads of agreement documents that there will be equal voting. So that's across the three councils. And what that means is there will be a structure set up for the shareholder representative forum where there will be equal opportunities to appoint and make decisions by the three councils. And that was agreed to be a fair reflection of the governance arrangements that would support the operation of the board of the new organisation. So the shareholding versus the decision-making is intended to be separate.
For absolute clarity, we have 1/3 of the cost and 1/3 of the vote.
Correct.
Thank you.
Last question.
Three words. Well, might be a question, Bill, you know, rather this, but as I said, I agree with Paul's concern that this is going to inflate and increase costs if it's not done properly if we go with this model. But theoretically, this isn't creating anything new, or it shouldn't be if it's done properly. It should just be transferring functions and services off of one balance sheet or from one entity to another. And rather than
just walk back from
oh,
down the hill and
Sorry, can you just mute, please? Thank you.
as opposed to growing the blob of the council, we're transferring one part of it to another entity. And any future set of people sitting around this table, if they think, well, we can rescope this organisation and we don't need to have as many staff in here now because those are now under that CCO model, and they can prudently act on their ratepayers' behalf and do that. I don't think that shackles us into a higher cost model. It may well do if people aren't careful enough, but I don't think that necessarily welds us to that model. So would you agree with that? Because you are looking at how it's going to look in terms of transferring the relevant staff from the existing business unit in-house into the new city. And the other councils are doing the same, right? Yeah.
So you do end up, through the chair, you can end up with some stranded overheads and things like that. You have to adjust the business to the general overall council business to match that.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of work that's going to have to be undertaken to tease out what that actually looks like, which is where we get into looking at what can we also do for efficiencies in terms of services across the three councils.
Yeah.
But all of that is the work post this.
Yeah.
I mean, through the chair, there's the reason we've got where we are with our assets and things. There's a few different things. New Zealand's a very young country. Our assets are all aging at the same state, so you end up with your asset needing to be replaced at the same time. Councils are renowned, you know, this is no pointed finger at anyone, of sweating their assets that much because they don't want to raise their rates to their customers, and that's how they do it. Or they can either do that or they can cease services. You can't stop the three water services because they're essential for life. Yeah. So they sweat their assets, and now you've got to the point where your assets and the requirements on the legislation to deliver the standard of product that you're given to the thing has reached that point where you have to implement something. It has to happen, and you can't cap it. You just actually have to invest, and that's where you're investing here. This entity here is investing in loan funding to catch up on that shortness of investment.
So is everybody prepared to go to resolution stage? So the resolution is 1, that the report be received. 2, that Council adopts the Water Services Delivery Plan as attached Appendix 1 to this report, subject to minor amendments to the WSD plan. And I'll put a sub onto that one, which will be 11.2a, that we authorise the Chief Executive to oversee and agree the amendments as we can't bring it back to Council.
I wonder if we have to authorise someone to make the amendments to actually and agree them and make sure they're accurate to what we've agreed here. So what I was trying to put into that was say that if you wish me to do that, obviously we can circulate the document in its final form, but we won't have a council meeting before the deadline, which was what the only thing that's indicated.
So is everybody happy that we put that in as 11.2A to make sure we've covered ourselves there in correctness? 1.3 is that council adopts the heads of agreement attached as appendix 2 to this report. And 1.4 is that we authorise the chief executive to certify the water services delivery plan and submit to the secretary for local government. Do I have a movement to add a secretary, please?
Can we go a step further with the delegation of the CEO that's some email approval from those that reply within the given time frame? So it's going to be circulated to us for approval. Whilst we're not going to the council meeting, can we do a return email or similar? Yeah.
As long as it's a really short time.
For approval.
Yeah, we've only got 6 days, so we're in the time frame, but just.
So we'll add that in, that we authorise the chief executive to oversee and agree the amendments. The document will be circulated accordingly for approval within a set time frame. Yep, you with that? Yeah. Do I have a movement and a seconder for that, please?
I'll move that.
No, second.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Councillor Monero, Councillor Davidson. Right, all in favour? Against? Five, 4. Yes. It sees it adopted. Thank you, everybody. I know this has not been a comfortable discussion, decision-making process. There's been an awful lot to take on board, comprehend, understand, get our heads around over what has not been a particularly long time. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. I'm acutely aware of that. I think Councillor Phelps is extremely right with this, is that due diligence on all conversations going forward, all negotiations, all parts of the structure and everything else, we need to manage very, very tightly. And those need to be part of the terms and conditions that go into the structure going forward of management, CCO, development and everything else, so that we have the surety that things will be managed extremely tightly. And there needs to probably be an amended reporting back form requirement, probably more so initially than what we discussed at the meeting with the other councils. I think until we need to keep things rolling, but we need to ensure that we've got this right and we're only going to get one chance at it. So yeah, I think we need to ensure that those conversations are fluid and solid going forward. Thank you very much for all our guests on the screen today and in person. We really appreciate your time. I know you've got Graham Waller tomorrow. Yeah, pressure's on everybody, and it's not an easy ride by any shape or form. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Yeah, more to come. And thanks, Alicia, for that. And you guys down the back there for your time. Right, so moving on to statement of intent, West Roads. Do we have Mark on, waiting in the waiting room?
And Mark.
Steve and Mark. Yeah, Mark's here. Afternoon, Mark.
Hello. Afternoon.
We'll keep going. Yep, Steve's here. Afternoon, Steve. Afternoon, Mark. Thank you for being here today. And I see Marley Louise is here ready for the next section. Thank you, everybody. Statement of intent for West Roads. Mark, you would speak to this report. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you. Steve, for me to go ahead?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, officers and others in attendance. Thanks for having me to present the West Road Statement of Intent for 2025-2026. I apologise for not being there in person on this occasion. I'll run through my report and welcome questions at the end. I'd like to thank the Council and the Oversight Committee for the process this year. The letter of expectation was beneficial in further aligning West Road's outcomes to Council requirements. The Board and Management of West Roads reviewed the letter of expectation against the Statement of Intent draft. The majority of the document met requirements, and where there were gaps, we either adjusted the Statement of Intent or communicated the reason for such variance back through the Oversight Committee by way of letter and follow-up meeting with mechanisms to meet requirements. For transparency, the letter of expectation items that are not explicitly included in the SOI are those relating to commercially sensitive information, which could be detrimental to our competitive position. We're, of course, share such information with Council through alternative forums to ensure they, as representatives of the ratepayer, have appropriate assurances regarding West Roads. For the document itself, I will take this as read and provide a summary of key points. I note we have summarised the vision and values under point 2. Under point 3, we have principal objectives and strategic priorities. The principal objectives of the company are to operate as a successful business, maximise shareholder value, provide positive community outcomes. To measure this, we move to point 6, performance targets, where we have both financial and social targets and measures. The financial targets, these include the ratio of net profit to average shareholder funds, an annual dividend to the shareholder, and regulatory requirements, the ratio of consolidated shareholder funds to total assets, and that all our financial performance targets are based on exceeding the weighted average cost of capital. The social measures, these include the number of incidents notifiable to WorkSafe, target 0, continue to promote safety first, leaving a total recordable injury frequency rate below 1.5 per 100,000 hours, training expenditure as a percentage of revenue, and staff turnover. Point 7 covers health and safety, point 8 sustainability, and point 9 relationships. High quality health and safety performance is paramount at West Roads. We're committed to fostering a sustainable future. West Roads has relationship plans to ensure that we are engaged with our community. We focus on enhancing our relationships with Westland District Council and clubs and organisations that our staff are actively involved with within our Westland communities. West Roads respects the importance of mana whenua and their takiwā. We're committed to developing genuine long-term relationships with iwi, hapu, and other Māori organisations. Point 10 is the distribution policy. Point 11, capital expenditure. Point 12, procedures for acquisitions. Point 13, commercial value of shareholders' investment. And point 14, risk mitigation. Under point 15, we summarise reporting to shareholders through the draft statement of intent, the completed statement of intent, half-yearly report, annual report, the annual budget, and quarterly reports. Point 16 covers accounting policies. Point 17 shows financial forecasts, including performance targets. These targets illustrate our pursuit of increasing profit, dividends, shareholders' funds, and return on average shareholders' funds. We're currently in an incredibly challenging economic environment. However, we saw our performance over the first 6 months of 2024-2025 that we have the strategy systems in place to perform well under normal conditions. We've made further adjustments over the last few months to cut costs and improve our business, and we continue to strive to deliver the forecast returns in the attached table. I thank you for your time and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, very much for that. It's a very sound report and statement of intent as per usual. Questions, please, for Mark from councillors. Councillor Manio.
Yeah, I don't know if it's right or not, but how come you don't have a CEO and a board of directors when you're trying to be competitive with other companies?
CEO and a board of directors. When you're trying to be competitive.
Yeah. The smaller companies don't have all those overheads.
There's a requirement under the Companies Act to have directors. That's where the board comes from. Normal governance practice is a board of directors and a general manager in our case as the head of the operations and management.
Any further questions for Mark, please? No? Hello. Thank you, Mark. So the resolution is that the report be received and that council adopt the West Roads Limited Statement of Intent for 2026. That council direct staff to make the statement of intent available on the Western District Council website within 1 month of this date for a period of no less than 7 years. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to that? Councillor Baird, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Davidson, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark, very much for your time. I'm sorry that we kept you.
Thank you. Oh, that's all right. It was interesting. It was good.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks. Next on the agenda is the statement of intent for Destination Western Limited, and for that we welcome Marie-Louise as chair of Destination Western to present to us.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for having me here today. And yeah, it's obviously been a big meeting for you, so we'll get on with the destination stuff. So again, similar to Mark, we found the whole process this year really quite really good. So the net of expectation was really helpful. So it gave us something to work towards, and we've managed to put the bulk of that, from what I can understand, into the statement of intent as to what the council and shareholder are after. So again, we'll take it as read, so that everyone's had the information to hand. And similar to Mark, we start with a company mission statement, our values, our goals and objectives. So goals and objectives, in particular this over the next 12 months, we've got a continued strong focus on the health, safety and risk management, which obviously with the airport under our guidance is a strong goal and objective for us. Commercial objective and growth focus as well. So basically we're wanting to be consistent with achieving our objectives stated and delivering financial and non-financial returns to our shareholder. Our strategic direction over the next 5 to 10 years is broken down into 5 key areas. So our airport and heliport development. Obviously we've got a big project going on with the airport at the moment, which is really exciting, so we're pleased to be involved with that. Commercial growth and land development. In particular, we are looking at maximising our value from our leased lands and currently our underutilised lands. Property portfolio management, so looking for improved performances in these areas. Operational and digital efficiency, continuing investing in our systems and making sure that we enhance our performance and that we have visibility, compliance and decision-making across the company, good decision-making across the company, and environmental sustainability. So we're having that embedded in our business as well. Governance is pretty standard, so talks to the governance team. Activities of the company is managing our core infrastructure, so the airport, heliport and our property. Leveraging our assets, in particular looking to boost aviation movements and, as I just said, enhancing land utilisation. And attracting investment, so looking to engage with private investors aligned with our core focus areas. Our performance measures and targets. We have our financial results, which have our interest covers, our pre-tax return on equity, our net debt and our net against our EBITDA. And then we have our communication performances or our measures. So maintaining a high level of communication with our shareholders, and annual independent tenant surveys go out to our aged housing tenants. We have health and safety measure and targets, environmental targets and our aeronautical targets, which in particular looks to increase, we're looking at ways to increase our passenger numbers. Capital expenditure and asset management, acquisition of other interests. We talk to our sale and disposal of assets and our commercial value of shareholder investment. Risk management, as I said, basically it remains a key focus for us at all times. Airport, hope to get airport, so project HARP collaboration. So we really acknowledge the project that's going on at the moment, and we understand that Westland and Council are taking lead on it. But it's been really exciting, and I know Mel and her team have really enjoyed working alongside the project team, getting that one underway. Reporting, so we talked about our reporting regulations to our shareholders. So that's all put down there. Our accounting policies, and that's acting within the legal requirements of the Companies Act. Distribution policy, sales of goods and services to local authority. And then we have our comprehensive income, financial position and cash flows for the next 3 years. So that is pretty much our statement of intent, and I understand you guys have all had a chance to make recommendations on it as we've gone through the process. But if there are any questions.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks, Louise. I see there's a couple of hands up around the table. Just on the directorship table that's on there,
yes,
being that that's out of date, is it relevant to this being the state of intent taking us forward, that we need to actually make some edits on there?
As in what part's out of date?
We've got Chris on there.
Yeah, okay, we can update that and just say that he's not eligible for reappointment. But I guess at this stage, until we actually do get a new director, he is still on the director.
I think we're best to note that of those changes potentially, because we've got appointments coming up very shortly. You are acting chair, so yeah, we just have to make sure we're correct there. I've just got a question before I hand over to Councillor Gillett. Health and safety risk, notifiable incidents to WorkSafe Zero. So I know in Franz Joseph drones been flying around within the airspace. There's a problem. There has been a problem just recently. Does that factor in? I know this report was probably written before that, but at what stage do you step in and intervene, or?
Picking if it becomes an issue. So we've got a manager that's on site down there. So that hasn't been brought to our attention over the last couple of health and safety meetings that have come through. There's a couple of reports. So if it is an issue, then that will be something that we can step into.
It is, and I know it's a great concern down there. It's only a matter of time before a drone potentially brings a helicopter down. So if you could actually potentially follow that through, that would be
within our area.
Yeah, coming up to the silly season, and we've already got drones out and about. Yeah, so if you could, I'd appreciate that. Yeah. Councillor Gillett.
Yes, through your worship, I was just going to get clarity on the chair position. What's the timeline for that? Getting involved, chair.
Steve, could you answer that, please, as independent chair? We're just going into interviews, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I'm happy to answer that. We have interviews taking place towards the end of September. At this stage, for the position of chair of Destination Westland, there is only one candidate, which is an unsatisfactory situation. And we have conducted a second data sweep of the IOD database. And over the weekend, I will be sending through to Mayor Helen and Chief Executive Barb the suggestion of we have found 2 more candidates who have an interest in the role and who have the suitable background experience. So that will mean there are 3 candidates for us to interview towards the end of September.
And just one other question, please. Is there an opportunity to remodel, review the landing fees as a potential revenue increase?
There's a consultation process going through at the moment.
Because I understood our fees might be a little bit on the low side.
I think that is understood, and the team, it is part of their SOI, their statement of intent, to review the aeronautical earnings and match it more closely with the assets that are being employed.
Through your worship, bluntly, are we subsidising Air New Zealand's passengers with their landing fees at the moment?
I think most airports in the country are possibly sitting on the edge of that.
I would say it's probably a fairly close call. I'd say it's a fairly close call at this stage.
Next question, me. Company mission statement striking a balance between investing in capital, maintain and improve our assets and producing long-term profitable operational results. If there's a trade-off there, it would suggest to me that we're over-capitalised and we've got more capital than our cash flow can express support.
I think what's happened is they haven't been reviewed for some time. So I think pre-COVID was the last time they were reviewed with Air New Zealand. So potentially we are a wee bit lower than we should be. So that's why we're looking for a good consult.
Gut feelings of how they need to be.
I think that could be a bit commercially sensitive.
Yes. Taxpayer on the airline and a ratepayer on the airport. But
Yeah, still.
Paul.
Through Chair. Thanks, Maurice. The mine is very superficial. When we talked last about that, we need to get rid of that silly name.
We have made further progress, so we've had a couple of meetings involving staff and directors as to workshopping it. So yeah, we're probably only about 20-25% way through the process, but we're getting there. I know, sorry.
The changes are coming.
Exactly, they are. Yeah, sure. Good positive stuff.
Brilliant. Is there anything else for Marie-Louise, please? I see Tank has removed himself from the table, so there's no risk of conflict. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for being here for the statement of intent. Thanks, Stephen. So the resolution is that the report be received and that council approve the Destination Western Limited 2025 to 2028 statement of intent as presented. Sorry, do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Glegg, Councillor Burden, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marie-Louise. Very thankful for that. And thank you, Stephen, for being here today and for your services as independent chair. It's been greatly appreciated having your direction and oversight on these. This is potentially the last meeting we'll be having with you, bar the employment interviews of the board directors before we close off for the election period. So I just want to acknowledge your involvement.
Thank you.
A pleasure working with you and great to have your advice and control at hand.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I also just note that the statements of intent were received by council within the statutory timeframe?
Yes.
And this meeting is, this discussion has been, I think, scheduled a little bit later than usual, which may create the impression that the SOIs were late, but they were not. They were delivered on time. Thank you.
No, thank you, Stephen, for clarifying that, because that is a valid point too, valid comment. So thank you. And thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so now we move on to presentations, and Carl, oh sorry, I couldn't see him down the back. Carl, if you could come forward please with the transportation update. You've got a bit to get through. We are on a time, you've got 15 minutes.
Yeah, sorry. While I connect in and bring the presentation up, while we're chatting, take the report as read. It's just a cover of what is in the slideshow.
While we're waiting,
yes,
Stephen's gone, but impressive to see both chairs acknowledging a better of expectation from us, getting a better statement of intent from them. So nice to see positive gains in that space.
Yeah, very much. I should have commented on that. But yes, it's absolutely bang on.
Incremental steps in the right direction are great outcomes.
Please. Yeah, but they give me the, let me just confirm that. Oh, sure.
You still have this? Yeah, it was in like push on the questions, a big statement.
Asking me some questions, but you have a fun thing of an answer.
Sorry, Lily, we are running 20 minutes behind. So my apologies for that. As much as we worked out the time frame of each discussion, yes, we got it wrong for Waters.
All democracy.
Well, it is, it is.
You've got to do it right.
It needs to be done.
Yep, we had to go through all that. And as much as we got off the track to what we were past, it didn't matter because it was, the information was helpful. So questions were yeah. Not easy, no?
Ready to go?
We're ready to go.
Okay, so there's a few things to get through. This time round, it's a little bit of a different format to what we've had in the past. The reason for that is because there's a few topical things that have come up recently that, particularly in the last council meeting, that I thought it was actually important to share with you and cover off what's been going on in the background, as well as what we are doing as business as usual. One of the questions was raised last month about the Jacksons River Road and the gate that we have across it. That's the gate in question. It is only locked closed when we're working in there or if it's been damaged and we can't allow people in for safety reasons. Otherwise, it's locked in the open position. Local emergency services, property owners have keys, dog have keys, the contractors have keys for it. So we've made them reasonably well available. It's just the general public that we try to keep out. We found that when it was closed, too many people were going through past the road closed signs and taking risks that just weren't acceptable for us. So we've established that gate there. It's been very good. So what we'll be going over today is a tool that we've had for a couple of years. It's just been made aware of to CEs and mayors fairly recently. It's our Transport Insights tool. So it provides an overview of where we sit performance-wise as a roading authority, and that it looks at a whole raft of different metrics that are measured. We'll go into that. What is REACH, Road Efficiency Grid, so referred to as the RIN and line, and how we're actually we've got a lot of ministerial requirements that are relatively new with this present government, and so that's caused us some extra work to get through, extra challenges, and just finishing off with what we're planning for this coming year. So jumping straight into the Transport Insights, this is freely available to anybody who wants to have a look. You don't have to have a login. I have a login which gives me more access to other stuff, so I could really geek out on some of the information that it shows. To start off with, we have a nice little entry dashboard. What we're looking at the moment is overall road conditions. So we're looking at ours on a national level. I can explain what some of that's mean coming up. But just off to the right, we have some good little metrics on just what our network is made up of. 710 kilometres of road, 68 k's urban road, mostly rural. We've got a reasonable amount of sealed network. It's sort of close to 50-50. And then a little bit of breakdown on what that network's made up of in terms of the categories of the road. So we can click on any one of these little items to go into something else. And it tells us a number of different things. Looking at our overall performance dashboard, it gives us some other more interesting features. Road safety is a red. Now that it gets, some of the data comes from our annual reports. Now, the road safety metric is a decline in fatal or serious crashes. So if we have a fatal or a serious crash on our network, and we've had none the previous year, then we failed our metric. It's a very difficult metric to actually succeed in, because largely things are out of our control. People crash for various reasons, and it's less often the road that's involved, it's most often the night. But it is something that's measured and it's something that's reported on. So it's a pretty much a blanket look at anything and everything, and it's how we look at it. So looking more at the statistics for our network as well, we can see our population, we can see our expenditure per person on our roading network. We can also see what it's costing us to maintain our roading network in general, figures per kilometre, relative to various budgets, the valuation of the network, 278 bridges. That statistic for our financial assistance far at the bottom right is out of date now. It's actually 64% funded by NZTA. But that's some of the handy information that you can get. It's quick reference, it's easy to see, and you can actually have a look at other councils, other road controlling authorities to see where they stack up relative to us as well. So you can get a really good direct comparison between one council and another. So looking at your individual results that you've got there, so you've got your headline result in the middle. In that case, we're looking at road condition. If we click on the little line next to road condition, it'll give us some more information. The little arrow at the bottom just takes us into more information again on our peer groups. So all the RCAs in the country have been grouped into peer groups, so light councils and light councils, and so you can see how you relate to everybody else, how you're sitting basically in the bigger picture of things. So the colour is fairly self-explanatory. It's green, it was an increasing trend. What we see here is a plus or minus 1% increase or decrease. What that tells us is that things are actually not doing too bad. They're not deteriorating at a great rate. 0.5% is a reasonably marginal. Okay. Going on to the next side of things, we can look at the amenity of sealed roads. Now, that is looking at the percentage of vehicles travelled on what they class as a smooth road. So where roughness of the road is classed as smooth, there's a certain criteria for that. So in our case, we're sitting at about 92% of all vehicle kilometres travelled on smooth roads. Look at the grey is the range nationally. So we're well within the range. We're actually above our peer group, which is that dark line. The next graphic there is road roughness. In this case, we don't want to be at the top of the graph, we want to be lower down in the graph, because that roughness count is the higher the number, the rougher the roads, basically. So looking at our 75th percentile for vehicle kilometres travelled, we can see that the roughness is actually slowly decreasing over time. Going into the road condition, which is looking at the pavement, looks at cracks, looks at potholes, looks at patches, repairs, dig outs, all of that sort of carry on. So we're actually trending up on that. We're pretty close to our peer group, but we're sitting about in the middle of the national averages. Surface condition. Looking at that looks at the age of our seals and the overall condition of the roads in general. Going back to, say, 2020, we're still coming out of relatively high reseal rates. Prior to about 2017, we were targeting about 10% of our network to be resealed. We're close to that in some instances, but over time we've had to reduce that amount. We're now getting sort of between 5.5% to 6%. Our target is 6.5%. We're not quite there. But what that shows us is that we're still hitting at the top of our game in terms of addition payments relative to the rest of the country and our peer groups. So things are not doom and gloom in that sense. We've had some benefit of additional sealing done over previous years, which is relative success going forward. So we can look at road maintenance delivery in terms of drainage renewals, curb and channel replacements, our road maintenance costs, and that looks at what was approved versus what we planned for, or what we forecast versus what we achieved. It can be a bit of a risk game sometimes, trying to forecast what we're going to do 12 months in advance. Sometimes we get there, sometimes we don't quite get there. But it's all general information, so that we can cover over. If anybody wants to ask me about anything or have a look at this in more detail, happy to go over it with people. This is quite a whirlwind tour. So this benchmarking is really quite an interesting one for us, because it looks at efficiency, value for money, and effectiveness. And when we look at where we're graded relative to our peer groups, we're actually doing really well in terms of value for money and effectiveness. And we're right in the middle there in terms of efficiency. That means basically what we're doing and what we're delivering is about on par with what's expected. If anything, probably delivering a bit more. And you can use that to reference back to what it's costing us per kilometre or per customer on the network. And if you look at that, you can see quite an interesting contrast. So going away from that, the roading efficiency group. So this was born out of the road maintenance task force at about 2014, 2015. So it's a collaborative effort between local government NZ, Transport Agency, and all of the road controlling authorities. So it's a group that was set up to support the sector, because there's a lot of change going on, and there's a lot of things that we have to deliver, and this helps us to work through on delivery. So it's a collaborative effort. So REG has a number of different groups. It's got the governance and leadership group, which looks at sector excellence. An excellence program where they can come in at no cost, review everything that we do, and give us an assessment or some pointers on what we can do better or what we're doing really well. Evidence and Insights looks more at they that have developed the Transport Insights portal, which we looked at just before. They're also operating the new program called a consistent condition data collection project. ZTA is funding that, so there's a savings on us, and that's a survey van that goes around every year with a laser survey and picks up all of the condition data on our networks. It doesn't do 100% of the network every year, but it does basically covers 100% every 2 years. So that keeps us in line with our funding agreement. We have to have survey data of our network as a but that's now also subsidised 100% by NZTA. So we have a strategic delivery group. So they help us to identify how we fund our roading network in terms of trying to set the right level of funding for the right type of roads and the right type of networks. That's what's called the differential levels of service. And there's a raft of other projects that they're working on. Now, regional champions, this is where I come into play. The regional champions support the local regions. I am the local regional champion for the top of the south and the west coast. So the area that I cover is us, Grey, Buller, Nelson, Tasman and Marlborough. So I provide support. We actually have regular meetings throughout the year, and I can provide you with support and advice and guidance on what changes are going forward. The champions actually meet periodically throughout the year as well around the country. There are a number of us, but we support the industry and help everybody come to terms with the challenges that are on and provide that level of guidance. Next topic, ministerial requirements. So along with the road cone hotline that is monitored now by WorkSafe, which we've had one request for, which was not even our network, but that's fine. There are ministerial directives that have come out. So we've got to track our temporary traffic management costs against all of our roading contracts. We've done a look at the number of potholes per quarter. Basically, we've got to count them and we've got to track how well we're doing in filling them, how fast we're filling them. There are guidelines, so the state highway network, their requirements, and it's a ministerial requirement, they've got to have 90% of their potholes filled within 24 hours. It's fairly tight, pretty unreasonable really, but it's not at that level for us yet, but we still have to track them. We have to report now on how we're working to reduce temporary traffic management expenditure. Now, I've talked about this in the past. There's been a number of changes in traffic management over the years, in particular a large change with the move from what was called the original Code of Practice for Temporary Traffic Management to the New Zealand Guide for Temporary Traffic Management. It's gone from a prescriptive Code of Practice to a risk-based Code of Practice. So there's less for us to do, aside from helping the industry come to terms with it. So there's less risk on our part, which is a good thing. But that's something else that we need to work on. So the ministerial requirements for the state highways, they are required to target 9% of their network for resurfacing annually. We haven't been directed to do that, but we have been told we have to look towards how we can do it, if we can achieve it. That's quite a dangerous precedent because as I showed before, high condition of the network coming out of 9 and 10% resurfacing. And the network's really good, but it's the affordability. We're probably actually end up doing more work than what we really need to do, and that's where we've got to find that balance. So 9% is probably the number, but we're watching the space to see what comes out. We've also got to look to how we can work towards a 2% pavement rehabilitation target. 2% of our network reconstructed on an annual basis. Whether that's affordable or not, I don't know. We presently don't do that, but our network's in quite good condition when you look at the overall picture. We do some rehabilitation works where we absolutely need to, but we're not getting anywhere near 2%. Just an example.
Do the pavements normally last 50 years then?
The pavements last pretty well, yeah. 50 years? No pavement's going to last 50 years.
then it probably need to be higher than that.
Well, that's what they reckon, but it's subject to the amount of traffic on it as well. So higher amount of traffic, higher loading will deteriorate pavement quicker. We're somewhat blessed in that we have lower traffic on our roads, so it causes less deterioration of pavement underlying.
So you don't have to walk on it, you moss
Well, yeah, if you don't use it, it grows moss. Yeah.
Remember, we've got 700, to the chair, 700 kilometres plus of network, so you're looking at 14 kilometres of rehabilitation, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of rehabilitation to do.
So just the little table at the bottom is just an example of what we now are required to report. And that's just potholes. So all of the potholes that the contractors identify and works that they do, we've got to report on that. And we've also got to identify roughly what time frame those potholes are fixed in from so it's not a target for us at the moment to have them all fixed within a certain time frame, but we don't know what the minister may require.
Sorry, Carl, we're going to need to push through because the time frame for other folk is going to go. Can I just say something about, for footpaths? Carl has been working with Earl, we've been talking about footpaths and how we can improve feedback on footpaths. And Earl made a really good point about the fact that, if people see something on the footpath that, because I was really concerned about hearing about people tripping on the footpaths. If people have concerns about the footpaths, do the, what's it called? Stand, snap and solve, and then we can actually see, and Carl has an opportunity then to actually do something about it. Because I am concerned if people are making statements that, they're not right, well, let us know and we'll try and fix them. And that's sort of the commitment we should be making. Sorry, I didn't need to jump on you one day, I was just thinking about it,
No, that's all right. And just finishing off with what we're planning on this year. So we're targeting 17.4 kilometres of reseals this year. That's just been out with the contractors pricing it up and doing the seal designs. I don't have the figures yet, but I'll give you those next week. We're working on repainting the Arrawatta Bridge. That's on our special purpose road. We're just looking at what we can do to improve our reporting. At the moment, we're just getting information through on a weekly basis from our contractors on what they're targeting to do the following week. And we're putting that onto our website and social media. We are looking at how we can improve on that, make it better, a little more. Now, so the 1st of September, any contractor working on a state highway has to work under the new guide for temporary traffic management. As part of that, we're also working towards that. There's no point running two different systems. Contractors and other contractors and how best to work through that. We're just looking at setting up the network inspections for our footpaths, just so that we can do another training on them. I do have a graphic that I haven't got in this presentation that I can share with you later on. But covers off the condition of the last survey, so I hope it'll improve from there. We've got the Kakatotai Bridge set for replacement. The replacement bridge will be ready to go. It's just got to be installed and assembled on the site.
Is that on the 1st of September?
I know where you're going with that. And we're also looking at our options for Burkhardt Creek on the south bank of Waitaha and the Rocky Creek on Totara Valley Road, both images there. So lower volume roads, we're less likely to actually look at replacing those with bridges. We're just looking at what the options are there. We've already put a set of pipes and a splash board on the South Bank Waitaha Road for one of the solutions that we did a couple of years ago, and that's performing quite well. And so we might well do the same thing for Burkhardt and Rocky Creek.
Just a quick question through the chair.
Yep.
Just think I didn't get the opportunity to ask the question at the last presenter. The Jackson River Bridge, you think it's locked, sorry, the gate is locked
Yep. So the.
But you then said it was closed.
Yeah.
Is it closed or locked?
It's, when the road's fine, the gate is locked in the open position.
Yes.
We lock it in the open position so nobody can be mischievous, close it, and do whatever.
Yeah.
When we've got contractors working in there, if they, and this is down to traffic management practice as well.
Yeah.
It's not a big area for getting people through. Yeah. It's a lot easier to close a road and do the work on it. Yeah. And then reopen it once you've finished it. Or the level of service that we've reinstated the road to is a lower level of service than what it was built to originally. Yeah. So we've had to accept the fact that at some points in time, that road's going to get washed out again.
Yeah.
And it may be closed for a period of time. We don't know how long.
Closed or locked?
Closed. Well, we would have to lock the gates at that point. And that is to protect the public interest. Protect them out of an area where there's a there's no road there.
Yeah, got it now.
You can't have a road.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
True.
So,
Through your worship on Jackson River Road, but that gate could also be a good tool for us to control home fees.
Shred them high.
Got their vehicles.
That's a solution, yeah.
But serious question though is who has, I did ask this last meeting, who makes the call about closing it?
About closing it?
Rough weather's coming, whatever.
We rely heavily on the advice from the contractor. The local police have actually also encouraged us to close it at times as well when they've had concerns about the road or people using it. Ultimately, it's our call as to whether it gets closed, but we do rely heavily on the advice from the locals as to what's the best outcome.
Who are the local police?
Right?
Who are the local police up there?
I don't know.
Singular, not plural.
Yes, one policeman. Councillor Glee, I'll take that as the last question from the force.
These rebuilds of rehab work that's being proposed, is that just consultation and is there an indication how it will be funded? Yeah, like 1% and 2%.
At this stage, it's just an indication that we should be looking down that road, which NZTA have to. Other RCOs are being encouraged to do, but it's not mandatory at this stage. So we have to report on what progress we're making towards it or what we're actually doing about it. I don't believe that that's the right solution, and we will come up with something that we believe.
The thing is, the Minister's been having a bit of a beat up about road cones. I don't know how many councils actually own road cones, because I've looked at all the road cones sitting in Christchurch, and none of them got CCC written on them. How can the Minister have a go at councils and get them to control the number of road cones when it's the contractors who provide them?
But it's us that sign off on and approve the traffic management.
So you approve how many
So,
cones?
but as the road controlling authority, it's falls on us. Look, if we think there's excessive cones, we'll do something. Lastly, just a couple of links there if you wanted to get a bit more information on Reg and the Transport Insights. I encourage you to have a look at that link. Go down that rabbit hole, explore the statistics. Any questions, bring them to me.
Where does
Want to look
the
at
insight data come from?
Sorry?
Where does the insight data come from?
The Transport Insights. It's data from us, so it's a combination of data from our systems. They pull information out of our reports, roading database, what we report to the Transport Agency on an annual basis as well. So it's crash analysis, information, police, a whole raft of information that comes through. And it's Very, very useful.
Government funding.
Good report, Carl. Good report, mate.
Thanks, Carl. And that site that he just referred to, it is really, I got onto it, was at local government conference, and it's actually an easy thing to navigate around, and you can dig in, you're not going to go anywhere and get yourself in strife, but it's really interesting the information you can get, so. This is the last one.
This is the last, right.
The real last one.
That's awesome. I was approached, Carl, by a businessman concerned that, talking to the contractor, I think, that the asphalt in World Street, between Rebel and Tanker Street, you can see in here you've got some asphalt works for Tanker and World Streets. Tell me we're not redoing that asphalt.
There are some, where we're looking at this stage, in Weld Street, primarily, that's all our offices here, from the railway lines to the clock tower. There'll be a strip through there that we're looking at. There is also some quite bad asphalt between Weld Street and Hamilton Street.
Right. Yeah, on Tancred Street.
On Tancred Street. So it's asphalt that's been dug up, patched, there's been contractors that have done, there's been three waters work done in it, there's been all sorts of things, there's trend statements everywhere, and it's at that stage where it's really not.
I'm talking specifically about Weld Street between Tancred Street and Rebel Street. Is that on the agenda or not on the agenda?
That piece? No, that's not been specifically targeted.
Because there was a contract that was out there, he was stepping it out, and the business person went out and said, what are you up to? And they said they're going to be redoing this asphalt.
Well, I'd have to have a look at the report. My understanding of it was this piece.
This piece was fine, it was definitely that section.
We can check that.
But that's on stumpers.
But it won't be done during the day.
No, but if you check it through, because he's saying it doesn't need to be done at all.
No, well, it likely does.
You should follow that through and just check it.
That's something that I'll be checking.
Yeah, because there are things that need to be done, but that one certainly doesn't need to be done.
And we don't need to be spending money where it doesn't need to be
Some of
spent.
them have got them all those crossed.
Thank you. Right, thank you for that. Carl, can I have somebody move and second and resolve that the report be received, that council resolves to receive the report as presented?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Everybody? Thank you, councillor Pearce, councillor Phelps. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Carl, very much for that. Appreciate it. Before we move to Lindley's report, please, meeting duration, we've exceeded the 2-hour point. Does everybody want a break, or do we just keep going? The rest of it is probably fairly fluid.
Punch on.
Punch on, is that the consensus? But I do need to have a move or a second or resolve that we carry on. The court's proceeding orders. Thank you, councillor Phelps. Second, councillor Beard, thank you very much. I'm thinking that everybody's in favour of that. Yep, okay, thank you very much for that. Right, moving on to Lindley, where is she? There she is. Thank you, Lindley, for projects and carry forwards for 25-26 here. Next, Lindley, yes, you have. A long way.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors, staff. Through Your Worship, I present the carry forward of projects request. Each of these projects were included in the enhanced annual plan for 2024-25. So we're requesting to carry forward a total of 943,214. That will bring the current, the 25-26 projects to 20 million, but for clarification, that does not include the 16.4 billion for the airport, which is on behalf of Destination Westland. So on that note, through Your Worship, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Casson.
I'll start with the bottom because that's how I operate. The one line in red. Can we get some clarification on?
Yes. So if you have a look at the note at the bottom, when the LTP is prepared, we also have to look at what our forecast position is going to be at the end of the previous year. So at the end of 24-25, we have to estimate. So we did carry forward a lot of the projects that we knew were not going to be completed at that time. This particular project, we actually spent this much more. So I've reduced it from the project plan at 25-26.
Can someone refresh me on the new developments at Cass Square, $49,000? Does anyone got the quantum for what that's for?
I do not actually have that, but I'm aware that there are plans afoot for that, and perhaps if I could refer that question to Earl.
As far as I'm aware, there is the half court, netball court, there's some other basketball court, sorry, and there's some footpath, the track improvements that get done as well.
Right. Okay.
So for the basketball court, then is that, because I thought they were funding it, so we've committed funds to it. So you're saying we've committed funds to it as well?
Sorry, I'd actually have to check that.
Because I believe they were fundraising.
I think they were funding that, yeah.
Any further questions, please?
Not specific to this report, but is there any reason we haven't got a financial report for this meeting?
Don't normally provide a financial report for July, mainly because for the July period, we'll have the report next, which will give you further focus. Lily and the team did do quite a bit of work, but it's still moving. It's would make nonsense to bring to the table, so we'll do the full
Any further questions for Lily, please? No. We're waiting. If I can please have a mover and a second so that we may resolve that the report be received, that council approve the carry forward of funds for the projects itemised in Appendix 1 to the financial year of 2025 to 2026, and that council approve the future allocation of funds for those specific purposes. Move and a second, please. Councillor Davidson, thank you very much. Councillor Beard, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lily, very much for that, and as I said before, for your patience and waiting there. Right, now we move over to the Chief Executive for the credit card limit increase report, followed by the credit card one.
I'm perfectly happy for people to say I told you so, to those people that put it up. Unfortunately, it's just been the sequence of events that we have needed the credit card that was up to the $10,000 limit to pay the technology, etc. And because we didn't have that, we did a bit of a juggle, but we still couldn't manage it. My preference is that we increase the $10,000 for a period. And look, I'm quite happy if we say probably a 6-month period, and then we'll revert it back. It doesn't need to be 10, it's just trying to get it through this transition period. So I'm quite happy if folk want me to do that. And that then I can use it to pay those accounts that are over the $5,000 limit if they come through. The only other thing I would raise with folk is that I do intend that my credit card expenditure will be public and will be made available on a quarterly basis. I actually think that's what you should do with credit cards for business use, particularly the senior people. I've always done it before, so I think it's just a good practice. I will have a look at the expenditure for if there's any sensitive commercial stuff, if I'm doing invoicing and stuff. I might not put that up publicly, but it'll be available to the council should they wish it. The second paper, which is for the Chief Financial Officer, of which we have had one sign up, I just think it's good practice that you need 2 credit cards in a business such as this, and you didn't have that previously. So he will have the $10,000 limit will go to him, and he'll go, that will hold his, yes, it's a he, thank you. That will go to him to hold as mine comes down, and he'll be doing the purchases that would have previously been held on the other.
And that role held the same amount?
Yes,
Right.
previously, and we'll do exactly the same transactions. Thank you.
Any questions?
Seems you're welcome, and I told you so.
Mhm,
I told you
thank
so.
you, thank
Can
you.
we just leave yours at 10K so we don't have to have a report to come back to council for such an administrative thing going forward?
I'm happy with either preference.
I think it's silly to drop it to 10 to 5 again to then probably come back next time something happens.
I'm happy with that. I think it's a Tahitian prince, I think.
Take it with you.
10K credit cards are enough to run away on.
With the other delegations,
Okay.
yeah, let's drop them. Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Reid.
Sorry, through your worship, just quickly, so that publication of expenditure, that's new? We haven't done that before, have we?
Not probably in the way that I'd like to do it. I think it's come to council. I'd like to have it up on our web. I understood it came to council.
I just figured it'd be a given, so yeah.
Oh, okay, I'd rather put it up on the web. It's just a normal practice and people can go and click on it and see it.
Got nothing to hide.
No, I think it's
I
good.
just
Transparency. Good thing to do, really.
The other, just one final query is, on the policy, it says that the overall responsibility for this policy rests with the mayor, councillors and executive leadership team. That's the
Yeah.
sense of expenditure policy. So what's our role in this as councillors in this policy? Just
Well, I'm not sure what the original intent was for this, but we will be reviewing the policies as we're going forward. And one of the things we'll be doing is making a real clarity around definition about that type of thing. But I imagine that it, sorry, because I thought that this was circulated to council, I imagine that the oversight of it was that we saw it on a regular basis and people would do. But that hasn't occurred, then I'm not sure it's met the intent.
yeah, that's tied in with the reporting, we'll make it, that makes sense, but just can't understand.
But good to know that it's going to be a lot clearer going forward. Any further questions for Barb on either of those two matters? No?
Move them both together if it's possible.
Potentially. So moved by Councillor Phelps, second by Councillor Bent.
We won't be doing stuff to the consequences.
So we're going to cover two resolutions. One is the credit card limit increase, that the report be received, that council approved to increase the credit card limit for the chief executive for business use from $5,000 to $10,000. That council direct staff to update the wording in the sensitive expenditure policy accordingly. That council direct staff to update the wording in the delegations manual accordingly. I'm going to take a show of hands for all in agreement on that one before I move to the next one. All in favour? Yep. Okay, carried unanimously. And moving on to the following one, which with the same mover and seconder, resolution is that the report be received, that council approve a credit card for the chief financial officer for business use with a credit limit of $10,000. That council approve the updated wording in the sensitive expenditure policy to include the provision of a credit card for the chief financial officer. That council direct staff to update the wording in the delegations manual to include the provision of a credit card for the chief financial officer. Right, all in favour of that one too, please? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. Sorry? Councillor Feed and Councillor Phelps and Councillor Beard. Right, next on the agenda we have the change to recycling fees for commercial uses, and Carl, it was yours. Earl, I mean, Carl, look, I haven't done it for years.
It's going to speak again.
We're timing it.
Same here, no, that's fine.
You've got an instant reaction.
Yes, Your Worship, councillors, I'll take the report as read, and I'm open for questions. If you wanted to give you a bit of an update about what it's about, basically it's realigning our cost with the other councils in the region, so which is outlined in the report.
So has there been quite a lot of stuff
There's
coming
been a
up?
bit and it's starting to sneak up a little bit.
Thank you, Councillor Manera. Moved it.
Got cheap, isn't
You go to where you can get chips.
Very
I'm just
cheap.
gonna ask one.
It also happens the other way.
I was going to say.
Westland people go and dump it up Dusty Pass as well.
Yes.
So,
Okay, so we have councillor Manera moving that. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Beard, thank you very much.
Yeah, there, Jane.
And the resolution is that a report be received and that council implement the charge of $165 including GST per tonne for commercial quantities of cardboard, paper, sorted glass and plastics deposited at the Hokitika transfer station effective from 1 September 2025. All in favour, please? Against? Sorry, there were hands not up.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
All right, that was everybody. Thank you, carried. Thank you very much, Earl. Right. Next on the list, we have the continuation of Hokitika Joint Committee and Friends Joseph Joint Committee. There goes the Chief Executive.
I would have thought, I'll take the report as read, it's pretty straightforward. It's just that the process normally when the Australian comes to an end is that the committees get dissolved. And I propose that we do not do this in the case of the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee or the Friends Joseph Rating District Joint Committee, and that they remain in train through the election period until next. Any questions or any concerns? No?
Remain into the next triennium.
Uncharged.
There won't be, it's saying that we won't be discharging the agreement rather than redo it every triennium.
Yeah, just the agreement.
Yes,
Not-
yes.
Not personnel.
No. So with that, the resolution is, sorry, is there any questions on further on that, Barb? Sorry, James.
yeah, just in the recommendations, the community reps from Friends Joseph be reappointed. There's no mention of if there's any co-op members in the Hokitika Joint Committee.
Discussed at the meeting.
Oh, that was
Discussed at the meeting today.
There's not.
You aren't any currently?
No.
There's a provision for them, for the to be.
Yes, and that's something that we're going to, that we said we'd commit to looking at.
So from my memory at the previous meeting, when I stood and we gave a committee action to regional council to come back with a report to what representation one from.
They came back with, they came back with a report yesterday, but there was a good discussion around the table about could we do this in a better way that gave a wider community involvement and engagement in the process?
Yeah.
And so that was going to be taken, I'm sorry, my memory is, it
No,
was
that's
going to be
right.
taken through to the next.
Yes. Just to ensure that we don't end up with perhaps potentially strong voices sort of outweigh the overall perception or thoughts or concerns or whatever. There's probably a better way of getting a fairer representation or ensuring we get voices to the table. So we're going to look at that and formulate from there.
As long as it happens, I
Yes.
think that these meetings don't happen regularly.
No, so that was noted from yesterday's
And
meeting.
we asked that it was noted that there's a strong commitment from the committee to make that happen.
Yes.
So it couldn't get fallen out at the next week.
Is there any discussion or information, I think I saw it in the paper, about Seawall? Those consents have been completely withdrawn?
Oh, that was a meeting yesterday.
Yes, so the paper didn't quite get it. Well, I don't know whether the paper didn't get it right or regional council put it.
The paper didn't report it well, and it reported as if they were going to be taking Rockpool away from Seawall, and while the thing was going on.
I don't know if I took that from her, I just took the
Oh,
consent. Yeah, explain.
No,
It was an agreement.
Yeah, so we went into agreement with them at the last meeting. The last meeting we talked about that, because they weren't going to be able to get it ready in time, so they withdrawn their applications, and they've got to get it done within 6 months back to us, revise it and do a full-on working in tandem with us, with a team of people to get a proper process in place to bring it back in 6 months' time.
And this will go through the Hokitika Committee, Joint Committee that we've just been talking about. Yep. So there will be space there for community input.
That's the intention of the way they've written going forward with the project team.
Thank you. Now just on that, the big concrete blocks that were bought for the beach access, Brian?
Yeah.
They're still at Butlers?
Yes.
They're worth quite a lot of money.
Yes.
I believe. What's the plan for them?
We're waiting for an appropriate project to come forward so we can utilise them on.
We
They
can't.
don't age, well, they age, but they don't rot.
Deteriorate.
Put an eyeball in them and use them to keep a marquee down or something like this.
Right. So, yes, I mean, I think we had that discussion earlier about selling them or whether there was a market for them, and I think that the policy they've looked at.
Through the chair, the issue you have is for someone else to purchase them to use somewhere else, they've got to transfer them.
Yeah.
You take them anywhere, it's $30,000-$40,000 worth of transport. So we've got them there, we'll find a project when it's appropriate and we'll do it. A long-term investment.
Sorry, on that, at the moment, is that, do we know, is it good?
It's very good access points, yes. Cool. Yep, very good access points. Right, if there's nothing further on that, I'll look for a mover to second, please, so that we can resolve that the report be received, that the Hokitika Rating District Joint Committee shall not be discharged on the coming into office of members of council elected or appointed at or following the next triennial general election, and that the Franz Joseph Waiau Rating District Joint Committee shall not be discharged on the coming into office of members of the council elected or appointed at or following the next triennial general election. Point 4, that the community representatives currently appointed to the Franz Joseph Rating District Joint Committee be reappointed to the committee following the 2025 triennial local election. Do I move to second, please?
We've used general twice and then local. The two generals probably need to be scrubbed and called local because we're not a general election.
I think we need to clear what we like.
The next triennial local
So the
election.
first two
Yes.
had general used and it should be local and the third had local used correctly.
Thank you for that. That's correct.
Trivial, but I just want to keep us all here for another minute.
Well,
So we
we've
get Chris
got this, yep.
right, you know.
Okay, noted and amended. Do I move to second, please? Councillor Connect, Councillor Burden, thank you very much. All in favour? Carried, thank you. Right, we are down to an administrative resolution. Is the last details of the meeting. Council was required to confirm its seal being affixed to the following documents. One is a warrant of appointment for Benjamin Roundhill, an authorised officer for various functions, powers, duties and discretions pursuant to the following acts to the Act of the Western District as an officer pursuant to section 174 of the Local Government Act 2002 and an officer under the Western District Council bylaws and an enforcement officer pursuant to section 38 of the Resource Management Act 1991 and authority to exercise all of the functions and powers of an enforcement officer under sections 327 and 328 which relate to excessive noise of the Resource Management Act 1991. So that is the first one that we need to fix the seal for. Yep, I've just got the subject I have to actually cover. It's the statutory appointment, so I have to, I'm not reading all of the next one because it's extensive. I'm reading the statutory points that I need to do, and that's it.
It's not like a pub was being answered.
No. So the next one is a warrant of appointment. This is the urgent item. It's for administrative resolution. The warrant of appointment for Michael Newport, Animal Control Compliance Officer, statutory appointment. One is an authorised officer pursuant to section 174 of the Local Government Act 2002. Two, an enforcement officer pursuant to section 177 of the Local Government Act 2002. Three, an enforcement officer pursuant to section 38 of the Resource Management Act 1991. 4, a dog control officer pursuant to section 11 of the Dog Control Act 1996. 5, a dog ranger pursuant to section 12 of the Dog Control Act 1996. 6, a deputy pound keeper pursuant to section 9 of the Impounding Act 1955. 7, a litter control officer under section 5 of the Litter Act 1979. So, yep.
I think it said lizard.
No, it's dog, sorry. So, just seeking approval to fix the seal, confirm the seal being affixed. Thanks, Councillor. And Councillor Beard is happy to do that. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody, for that. Right, so with that at 5:15, I will declare the meeting closed. The next meeting is the ordinary council meeting of 24th September, which will be at 1 o'clock. And as I said earlier, can you all please ensure you bring your laptops? A message will come out as a reminder, but if you could please do that, and also look to take off anything personal you have on there in the interim, that would be appreciated. Thank you, everybody. It's been a marathon effort today, but greatly appreciated. And thank you to the members of the public that have been on Zoom watching, and to Mrs. Martin for being here through the whole duration. Thank you, everybody.